Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to draw this beautiful sunflower, and our first step is going to be to draw our pencil guides. And we're going to be drawing 3 circles to make up our center, and these should look a lot like the Target logo. Once you have drawn the 3 circles that will make up the center, you will draw one more large circle that will be the pencil guide for the petals. Now that I have drawn this big circle, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so that I can get started on the center so that you can see a little bit better. And so I'm going to be drawing little C and S-shaped squiggles along the 3 lines that I drew for the center. And they don't have to look perfect or anything like that. Just draw a highly concentrated squiggles along these 3 lines, and then we're going to disperse some in those spaces in between. And this will look kind of silly, but I promise that at the end it's going to look really great, especially if you end up coloring it. Go ahead and take your time while you're doing this. There is really no way that you can mess this up, so just make sure C and S shapes and making them darker along those lines, and then as you do those in between shapes, or in between spaces, sorry, to do just a little bit. In this tutorial, I am using a Sharpie fine liner marker, but you can use whatever pen that you have at home, whether it be a brush pen, a pilot pen, a gel pen, whatever you have, go ahead and use that because it works. All that matters is that you just pick up something and start drawing. As you can see here, I'm adding little squiggles into those in-between spaces, just kind of making it look almost like sprinkles. And you can go back and darken those 3 lines even more if you want. It just depends on how dark you want your center. I decided that I wanted mine to be a little bit darker, so that's why I'm going back over it with more squiggles. Now it is time to get started with the petals, and we're going to be using this pencil guide as our guide, of course, but some of the petals don't have to go all the way to the edge. So some of them I do 3/4 of the way up, some of them I do hit that line, and then a few I will let go just past the line, just because I don't want it to look too uniform, because flowers, while there is natural uniformity or natural symmetry in nature, they do have their slight imperfections, and so having the petals be slightly different lengths helps create those imperfections and make it look more realistic. So this sunflower will have a few layers of petals, so I'm going around the circle adding what I like to call guide petals, and these are the petals that are kind of sitting on the front, whose shape you can see all the way. The other ones are kind of layered, or part of them is hidden behind a petal, and so you can just go around the circle adding a few guide petals, and then you can start layering them. And another thing that I'm doing to add variety to these petals is adding folds randomly, and the way you add a fold is just draw an extra line along the edge of the petal. Just like with human beings, sunflower petals come in all different shapes and sizes, and so you can see from my drawing there are some petals that are definitely shorter and a little bit fatter, and others are taller and skinnier, so adding that variety really does make it look more realistic. And just like we did with our center, petals are actually made up of C and S waves as well, and so you want to make sure that your petals don't look too perfectly rounded and that they have those natural curves and folds. Because the sunflowers have so many petals, this part will take a little bit, but just go around the flower as if it was a wheel, adding petals here and there so that you can make sure that it doesn't look too symmetrical. So making sure that you add some overlap with each other, making sure that you add some with folds, some skinnier, some fatter, and adding that variety as you go around the flower. In this video, I am twisting my hand to draw the petals, but feel free to just rotate your paper so that you're not rotating your wrist too much. Once you feel like your sunflower has the right amount of petals, then it is time to get started with the detail lines. And I'm going to be sharing a few of my top tips for adding details. And for each artist, it's different. Some artists like to add a lot of detail lines, some artists like to be very minimalistic. You do you, and you do your style the way you like best. I'm just going to share a few tips that will apply to everything or to all types of styles. So my first big tip when adding details is to make sure that you add a variety in the length of your lines. You do not want all of your lines to be the same length, or else it's going to look really static and, just flat. My second tip is to add a little bit of curve to your petals, but make sure that you curve them in the direction that you want your petal to be folding. And so by adding that curve and not making them too straight, then it will make it look like your petals are moving and dancing and folding. So my third tip about details is to observe. If you are drawing with a reference photo or with a real flower, observe what you are drawing and you will see that all flowers have natural veins in their petals, and these natural veins are the perfect place to add a detail line. And a fourth tip for this flower specifically is to make sure that you have detail lines coming out from the center of the flower, but also making sure that you add some along the edges, or especially at those tips. And those tips, if you add detail lines there, it will make it look like they're kind of folding into itself a little bit. I know that these are a lot of petals to add detail lines, but just kind of get lost in the moment, listen to the music, just take your time. You can go ahead and pause this video if you need to, and just take your time drawing these detail lines, making it and finishing it the way you like. I'm going to go ahead and speed it up just a little bit, or else we're going to be watching about 5 minutes of detail lines. And so like I said, you can go ahead and pause it if this is too fast, just doing it the way you saw it in the video when it was normal speed. Once you finish adding the detail lines to your flower, observe your flower. You might feel like you want to add some more squiggles there in the center to make it slightly darker. I kind of had that feeling, so here I am adding more squiggles. But you do you, and if you're going to color it, this is something that you can also do with markers or color pencils to add that depth and darkness for the center. Thank you so much for joining me for today's sunflower tutorial. I hope that you found this video helpful and that your sunflower turned out beautiful. Thank you!